Hello, everyone. Senior here. Live long and prosper, and happy Halloween. So it's October, as you may have guessed, of 2025, and it's been a fairly straightforward month overall for me. Um, I've spent a lot of it. So I have a character in Guild Wars 2 that I was slowly working my way through all of the story on, and I'd kind of like stalled out somewhere in End of Dragons, and then I finished playing through that and got into Secrets of the Obscure, and so I've spent a lot of this month like replaying through Secrets of the Obscure and started replaying Janthir Wilds. And at this point, the expansion is coming out tomorrow, the new expansion, Visions of Eternity. And at this point, I kind of think I might want to finish replaying Janthir Wilds before I actually really launch into it, because I want to like have that context fresh in my mind. It was interesting replaying Secrets of the Obscure. There's a couple of things that kind of like stood out to me. The first is that I really like, so for some context for those who maybe aren't that familiar with Guild Wars 2, and just kind of make sure everybody's on the same page. When Guild Wars 2 launched in 2012, it's been a while. The story was about the Elder Dragons, these immense beings of vast power that, most critically, were apparently destroying the world. Like, there's been these histories of these dragon cycles that are like millennia long cycles where the dragons will wake up, like consume a bunch of magic, and then go back to sleep for millennia. But when they're consuming all that magic, they're basically like wrecking the world in a way. And so the story from the launch of the game up through the End of Dragons expansion, so that's Living World Season 1, the first expansion, Heart of Thorns, Living Worlds Season 2, actually that comes before it, but Living World Season like 3 and 4, and then the Path of Fire expansion. Living Worlds were kind of another storytelling mechanism that Arena was experimenting with. But and then like everything up through the Icebeard Saga and then End of Dragons, it basically a few years ago was focused on this story of taking down the Elder Dragons, and what does that mean, and what are the repercussions, and what were the Elder Dragons actually doing. And so there's a lot of interesting story there. But it was like, this is the story that they had at the inception. And it was so much at the inception that Guild Wars 1's last expansion, technically it's only expansion, but that's another discussion for another time, way back in 2007, I believe, is when that one came out. Like, Guild Wars 1 had it might have been, was it 2007 or 2008? And I don't remember for sure anymore. But Guild Wars 1 had its initial release in like April of 2005. I don't know. I didn't start playing it until more like August or September or something. But it had its initial release, and then the subsequent, like, it was about a year for factions to come out, and then about 6 months for Nightfall. So those were like 2006. Yeah, and then 2007 for Eye of the North, and then they're like, the things that we like, they were running into various developmental issues, and like the things that we want to do, this engine can't handle, and etc. So that's when they decided we're going to make Guild Wars 2, and then it took them like 5 years to make Guild Wars 2. Meanwhile, they released a few more things for Guild Wars 1 with their smaller team, kind of keeping that game going. So like, and they still are drawing a ton of inspiration from Guild Wars 1 stuff, or like adding Guild Wars 1 areas, because Guild Wars 2 just functions differently. But it's just interesting like how much of Guild Wars 1 they're continuing to mine for Guild Wars 2, even though Guild Wars 2 has been actively going for much longer. Guild Wars 1 had like 2 years of the intense development, then like another like 5 years or whatever. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off track. But in that expansion that they released in 2007, they had a bunch of stuff that they planted for Guild Wars 2 things that they wanted to do. So we got introduced to the Norn, which are a race of people who are about like 1.5 to 2 times taller than a human, something around there. and like their culture and stuff. They changed it a bit with Guild Wars 2 when they finally released it for various reasons that you can have feelings on. We're also introduced to the Asura, and there are various other characters that were introduced as well. But one of the key things is that they hinted at the various Elder Dragons. They hinted at Kralkatorrik's location. They very hinted at Primordus, and one of the big threats which is one of the Elder Dragons, and one of the big threats in Eye of the North that you're dealing with are the Destroyers, which are like these minions of Primordus, and things going along with that. It involved some retcons. Arena is a studio that does a lot of retcons, and that's okay. It's because they kind of figure it out as they go, and I can understand that. And I don't quite like how they kind of did stuff with the Destroyers, but that's again another discussion for another time. But they were setting up the Elder Dragon stuff way back then as well. Like they're like, okay, we're gonna have these massive, intimidating dragons, and so like most of the story of Guild Wars 2 has been, okay, you're fighting these dragons and trying to stop them from destroying the world. Oh no, this is having some impacts and repercussions, etc. But like there's a lot there, and I think it's pretty interesting overall what they've managed to do with it. But they finished it. Like you finish this confrontation with the Elder Dragons, and then what? Right? And that's the big question. And that's the question that Secrets of the Obscure. So we're like 3 years out, basically, from them having to answer this question, right? The Secrets of the Obscure of like, now what? And so the story of Secrets of the Obscure basically begins with your player character called the Commander being like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like the whole thing that I'd oriented my life around has ended, and I'm kind of not sure what I'm doing. And it feels like a perfect parallel for the writers who are like, well, we had this big narrative that we were doing, that we've been doing for the past decade and change. Like, yeah, basically a decade. And then maybe 11 years, but something about a decade. What now? Right? They have to be like, what's next? Like, we've had this arc, and now we need to continue somehow. And so it feels like your character is paralleling where the things are, the writers are. So there's a big like, okay, what now? And so they land on something, right? And it involves a lot more geopolitics, which I think are interesting in our world of Tyria. But it involves encountering like, oh, the end of the dragon cycle had created a huge ripple through the mists. This is a complicated thing as part of the like metaphysics of the Guild Wars universe. The mists are kind of like raw primordial possibility, is how I describe them. And so they can congeal into entities, and then like be formed into existences. So like Tyria originally was formed out of the mists, and there's various entities that have made realms in the mists and things like that. But it's kind of like raw primordial possibility. When beings die, they go to the mists. It's a kind of a complicated thing to try to figure out how to explain, but the afterlife was made in the mists and things like that. So what you have is there are beings that have formed out of the mists that are hostile, and the organization that you encounter in Secrets of the Obscure is been long protecting Tyria, the world of Guild Wars 1, from these entities, these hostile entities born of the mists. And so you run into that group and you encounter them. They've been acting secretive, but the end of the dragon cycle has like thrown off all of their sort of protective measures. And so you confront a threat that's come in from the mists. And so it's this process of getting, like, the group knows about you, but you don't know about them, so you're learning about them, and you're getting to know them and working with them, and becoming entangled in the politics of another place called Nyos that is in the mists, where a group of beings called the Cryptus live, and they have a civil war that's been brewing, and you're caught up in that. So it's a whole lot of things going on. Now, as part of Secrets of the Obscure, Arena also changed their model for how they're handling their expansions. So they are like, they had been doing this living world thing that wasn't like, it was hard to advertise. People didn't quite know what it was. I think it worked well overall, but one of the challenges with marketing is you kind of have to be within enough of the wheelhouse of what people are used to that you can, they know what they're getting into and stuff like that. So ArenaNet had the Heart of Thorns expansion, the Path of Fire expansion, the End of Dragons expansion, and then they had a bunch of Living World seasons that were kind of taking the same sort of place as an expansion, but were maybe like a bit differently structured. But like they're having a hard time with communicating what exactly Living World was to players, and so they kept doing expansions. But I don't know. Anyway, the point is, Arena is a studio that likes to experiment, but they also want to take lessons from their experiments to figure out what's working, what's not. And one of the things that wasn't working is that they were having a hard time properly marketing Living World because people didn't know what the heck they were talking about. And like trying to explain what it was just not working. So they decided, okay, we're just going to go to an annual expansion model. People are familiar with this. They know how this works. So Secrets of the Obscure was the first one of these. Janthier Wilds was the next one. And then Visions of Eternity is the one that's going to be coming out this year. And so what they did, the way that this model has worked so far, we'll see how it goes with Visions of Eternity. They're still kind of experimenting with it and kind of figuring out how to structure it best so that it works for their people, the developers, so that they're not overtaxing themselves, and they can also deliver stuff in a way that is satisfying to players. And they feel like they were maybe a little overly ambitious with Secrets of the Obscure. But what they've said, because they've been very public about like, okay, here's the things that we did and tried and learned, and I really appreciate that they write up what we call postmortems in the game biz, where it's like, okay, we're looking back at something after it was released, and seeing like what went well, what didn't, what lessons did we learn, and they've been pretty public about that, which I appreciate. But anyway, the with Secrets of the Obscure, the model is a larger initial release, and then 3 smaller releases over the course of the year, like one a quarter, basically. The way that this fundamentally is structured, I would describe as like half of the story releases initially, and then the other half is released in 1/3 pieces. So it's like you get 3/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, roughly. And that's how it's worked for Secrets of the Obscure and Janthier Wilds. This does lead to some weird pacing things. So that initial story chunk tends to be a little bit slower paced because they have more time to kind of like work their way through things and process things, which can leave the other parts feeling a little bit rushed. One of the things I noticed with Secrets of the Obscure is they had the real world gaps in time of the story kind of like baked into the narrative, and that felt a little wonky just playing it through straight. So that's something that I notably felt when I was replaying it, of like, and now several months have passed, right? Several months of you just randomly doing stuff, theoretically, out about in these maps that are also being released with the expansion. It's like, okay, that's kind of like, it's a little clunky, but like it's also kind of accurate to what actually happened. But it does make the replay a little bit clunky. But I overall enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the stuff that they were setting up with Secrets of the Obscure. And it was nice to go back into it and like re-experience the story with all of the proper nouns firmly in my head because I was familiar with them. So like proper nouns in this case is people, place, and things, right? So I know who these new characters are that I've been introduced to. So when I hear their name dropped earlier on in the story, I know, oh, okay, it's referring to this character, right? I know who Dagda is when they mentioned Dagda earlier on, for example. And so I've also enjoyed the broader geopolitical stuff that they bring up with it. And then we get to Janthir Wilds, which I've started replaying, and that continues the geopolitics, but it introduces the script that you've been working with in Secrets of the Obscure, the Astral Ward, to the broader world. They're finally revealing themselves. They can no longer quite keep themselves hidden. Like the conflict that they had with the Cryptus is now resolved in Secrets of the Obscure, but it had ramifications in the world. And so it's very interesting how that all kind of comes together. I guess Secrets of the Obscure doesn't have so much of those geopolitics. It's more Janthir Wilds, but it's like right at the start, so it kind of feels a transition point. But it like leads into it. So Janthir Wilds I'm not going to comment on too much because I'm right in the middle of it. Well, not quite in the middle. I don't think I've hit that halfway point yet, but it's been interesting going back into that one again as well. But I'm very curious to see what Visions of Eternity does and how it kind of continues things, because ArenaNet's done a good job of like keeping in mind that this is a continuous story and not feeling like the first core story feels very like archy and episodic-y in a way that I criticize. And this, like, it has clear arcs. Like, this is the Secrets of the Obscure arc. This is the Janthir Wilds arc. I kept calling it Wilds of Janthir, but it's Janthir Wilds. I don't know where I got it swapped in my head at some point, but they've done a really good job of like, okay, this story is continuous ever since like the core story. And I feel like they've done a good job of that here. And so I'm looking forward to seeing it continue, but I do kind of want to finish replaying Janthir Wilds first. So we'll see. I'm definitely not going to finish Janthir Wilds before Visions of Eternity comes out. Finish replaying it. I have played through it once, but that was in its piecemeal part, and I kind of want to know how it feels when I'm not spreading it out, because I remember feeling like the Janthir Wild story felt a little bit wonky in its pacing, and I want to know if that wonkiness feels like it goes away if I'm like playing it through rather than having to wait months between each installment. So I'm looking forward to kind of figuring that out. So, but I also don't want to like rush it, because one of the other things that I've been doing this month has been reading through That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, or as I like to refer to it as Slime Tensei. Tensei is reincarnation, or like reincarnated in Japanese. And that's a lot shorter to call it Slime Tensei. So I'd read the first light novel some while back. I'm not going to look it up. I could, but I'm not going to. And then I read through Overlord through book 16, and we're waiting for like two more from that to come out. But in the meantime, I finished that, and I wanted to read through That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime as well. So I've been reading through that. So my sister had picked up the first of each of those from the library, and so I had read them, and then I read through Overlord. Now I'm getting back to that Slime Tensei. So I finished Overlord at the end of September, for those who are wondering, and then I started reading Slime Tensei. So I've been enjoying reading through that. I've read through book 8 now. Or no, book 8. And 9 and 10 are available for pickup from the library. Our library system is really good, but you kind of go into the system and be like, okay, I want to read, or I want you to put these things on hold and at this library, and so they will like ship them from whatever library they're in to the library that you want to pick them up at, and then they go on a hold shelf for like a week or a week and a half or whatever, depending upon where you're kind of sending it, and then you can go pick it up at your leisure, and it's a very convenient process, although there is some lag time in there, obviously, but it's a county-wide library system and it works really well. So anyway, 9 and 10 are available, so I should hopefully be able to start reading those later today. But I've been really enjoying reading them. I really like the anime as well, but one of the things about reading the book version is you get these background details like that. There's no good way to communicate it. You get more accurate representation of like individual characters' emotional states, for example, things like that. But it's been really interesting reading them and feeling that sort of the style that they're written in and stuff. And it's kind of inspiring in its own way, because I have been working on my own story this month as well, of course. But I'm looking forward to reading the next books. The anime seems what is out of the anime right now, as far as I can tell, goes through book 9. And there's like 22 books in the series. So, as far as I'm aware. So that should give you some sense of things. This was actually kind of a shock to me. Because the anime is at like 72 episodes or something. But Slime Tensei actually moves pretty quickly overall, especially earlier on. I think it maybe has slowed down a little bit now, but especially earlier on, it moves very quickly. And so, like the first book covers, like the events of that are covered by like the first 8 episodes of the anime. And I'm used to it being like 3, maybe 4 episodes per book. So this was kind of a surprise. Like with Spider, So I'm a Spider, So What, and Overlord, the anime is like, okay, we got about 3 or 4 episodes of our anime out of the book. And then I read, Slime Tensei, and it's like, yeah, so we got 8 episodes out of that book. I'm like, whoa, that's not what I am used to. So it definitely has a bit of a different sense of pacing. But I've been really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to getting past the events that I am already aware of. So that's something that's going to be very exciting for me. But that's something that I've been doing this month. I've also been streaming pretty consistently on Fridays, not at a consistent time and not for a consistent length, but I have been trying to stream consistently on Fridays. So that's on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/cntier. You can find the VODs on this here YouTube channel. So I've been enjoying doing that. I've been continuing playing through Guild Wars 1, where I'm on a second account that I'd gotten a couple years ago now, I guess. Year plus? About 2 years. I don't remember exactly. But I've been doing what I've been calling my quest for UAS, or unlocked all skills. So I've just been trundling away at that. Just this last Friday, I did now Friday, your mileage may vary depending upon your time zone and when I actually start and stuff, but usually I start sometime in the afternoon for me, and I'm in the Pacific time zone. So that's GMT -7 or -8, depending upon whether or not daylight saving time is up. And it's about to end, and I'm not looking forward to it because Novembers are rough for me, I have found historically. And I think a large part of that is because daylight saving time ends and it suddenly gets dark earlier. And that's really rough. So anyway, so I'm not looking forward to daylight saving time ending, just because that sudden abruptness. Nighttime, I don't like to stay up late at night because I like night. It's because nighttime makes me anxious, and that makes it harder for me to calm down and sleep. So it's actually easier for me to fall asleep while the sun is up. That's just psychologically how it is for me. Just more comfortable. So anyway, my point is that I'm looking out my window right now. My point is that daylight saving time is ending soon. With that, but yeah, so I've been the Friday time zone thing. Anyway, so I've been playing through getting skills with that, and that's been fun. So loosely, my plans are, once I finish unlocking all skills, as determined by looking at heroes, I will at that point intend to switch to playing through Middle-earth: Shadow of War, which I had started to do at one point in time on a previous computer several years ago, and then that computer's graphics card finally died, and I had to give up on that endeavor. So yeah, I didn't do more than like one stream of that, and it had problems. So I did play through Shadow of Mordor, so you can look up that playlist if you want to. But yeah, anyway, I've been enjoying doing that. Let's see, other things. I've been watching Bingo Brawlers, which I've been really enjoying. You can find that on YouTube. It's run by Captain Domo. But that's been a thing that I've been enjoying that I'm not going to explain because that would take a bunch of time, and I kind of do want to be wrapping this up soon. I also played through Parallel Experiment with a friend. This is an interesting puzzle game. It's a co-op puzzle game where you have to work together to solve various types of puzzles. It's kind of, I don't know, escape room-y a little bit. But I had fun doing that. That took us about 5 hours, I think, on an afternoon, like a week or two ago. So I enjoyed doing that. I enjoyed drafting Spider-Man, the Spider-Man Magic the Gathering set. I don't know, like I feel like I've been hearing a lot of negativity about the Spider-Man set, and I personally was surprised by it. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting to. And part of that is I just think the mechanical execution was really good. But I enjoyed the art more than I expected. I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. So I was pleasantly surprised by that. And at this point, I'm just like, okay, Universes Beyond is just here, and I'm just going to kind of accept it. And as long as the folks at Wizards of the Coast continue to make cards that I find fun to play, what does it matter? That's what's important. Yeah, I had a lot of reticence because it felt like it's kind of diluting things or whatever. But Lego having a bunch of different IPs available is fun. Do I miss some of their own IPs? Yeah, I do. I'm looking over towards the Lego set that I have built over there, by the way. It's a Ninjago city block. That's a really cool set. I mean, there's one behind me as well. Behold, the microphone covering it. But, yeah, so I miss some of those things, and I don't want Wizards to entirely stop doing their own IPs. I think that would be a great loss, but if Universes Beyond is here, then fine. As long as the cards are fun to play. Now, the one contention that I have is I don't like that the packs are $1 more, and that makes all sorts of things more expensive. It makes drafting more expensive. It means fewer people want to do it. It makes the pre-releases more expensive. It's making everything more expensive. Not great. So I wish they would do something about that, but I don't know what they would do. So I don't know. It's frustrating, but I don't know. So anyway, I enjoyed doing the pre-release for that and a couple of drafts at my local game store. We actually did a Rose at Karlov Manor draft this past week, and I enjoyed that. You can see some of the cards from that over my shoulder, if I can get this mirrored image that I'm looking at correct. So you can see some public thoroughfares over there. And what other things I want to mention? Yes. Probably the last big thing that I want to mention. I have been working on my story, but I'm not going to necessarily go into a whole lot of details with that. Just because it's still very much so in development. I've gotten my push-up count above 60. I'm very happy about that. So, in December of last year, I started doing push-ups and sit-ups with my sister as a way of getting some exercise in and strengthening ourselves and stuff. And so we started off with 10 push-ups, and at this point, I've gotten to the point where I'm doing more than 60, and that's very exciting. And then the other thing I'll mention is I spent a Saturday, according to my notes, but it's probably quite a bit of time, at the start of the month, binging the anime To Your Eternity. Its third season is coming out right now, and wow, that was a very emotionally affecting show. That is a show about relationships, and remembering people, and it's just very emotionally impactful. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but it's available on Crunchyroll. That's where I watched it. But To Your Eternity, it's a very, very emotionally affecting show. So I enjoyed is maybe not quite the right word. Became attached to and was moved by that one. So anyway, I think I've gone on quite long enough talking a lot about Guild Wars 2 things. And I feel like it's been a pretty good month. It's been interesting glancing over the things that I did on it. It's weirdly, this October has felt like it's been very long. I'm used to having a point where I'm like, wow, it's time to record the Life and Channel Update video already? This month's almost already over? How did that happen? But this month felt like it's had another week and a half in it compared to what I was expecting. And or at least another week. I don't know. I don't know why that happened or how that happened. It's just been a very weird month in that regard for me. So anyway, that's going to be it. So until next time, everyone, thank you all very much for spending some time listening to how my month has been. I hope your month has been good, that you've had a good month and that you've been well. So until next time, everyone, take care and live long and prosper.